You're listening to the Word Slinger Podcast, episode 49, Pop-Up Entrepreneur with Seth Livingston. Pop.
If you would like to support this program, or any of Kevin Tomlinson's work, then we invite you to become a reader. Get the Kevin Tomlinson Starter Library for free at kevintomlinson.com/starter library.
It's the Word Slinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented Pants Optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger.
Word Slinger.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger. I'm stupid happy to be here. It's been a little bit of a rough morning for me. I'm going to be honest with you. It started with, true confession. Sometimes when I get up in the morning, despite every good intention, there's just no way for me to get everything I want to do done. And on show days like this one, when I record my intros and everything and the wrappers for the show and put all this together, it's really kind of a difficult day for me to do any actual writing, which, if you've been paying attention, is what I do. And so on show days, it's tough for me to actually sit down and get anything done on my word count. That's one of my rougher days. Days like today, when my beautiful wife just happens to get up at just the right time and has many things she wants to talk to me about before she goes out the door, I saw my writing time just dwindle and just fade. A little frustrating, but, that's life for you. And there's a lesson there, I think, that life happens. Life's going to happen. You want it to happen. And sometimes your plans have to be just sort of shunted, just sort of put on hold or put on pause or just delayed a little, So that's what's happening today. So I got started on this a little later than I would like. The episode's probably going to go live a little later than I would normally send it out. But you're a patient type, I can tell. So all that aside, that's just airing dirty laundry or something. So I'm going to move on. But this morning, today, I've got an interview with someone kind of interesting. And the way I found this guy was because I was looking for something to fill a need. I'm talking to Seth Livingston, who is he's the owner of Seth's Pop-Up Creator. He's the developer of this thing. Now, this is a little different than some of my other interviews because, Seth works for another company. He'll mention it in the interview. One that I know, one that I have a little bit of a personal connection to. But this work that he's doing, it's not his full-time gig. And it never will be, probably. I mean, it's not. This is a tool he's created that's not useful to just anyone. It's specific to a certain group of people. And that group of people are those of us who use Squarespace as our web host. So not a wide audience. But what I wanted to talk to him about was I'm kind of fascinated by this idea of just, seeing a need and filling a need, creating a small business around it. And it's a nice bit of side income. Now, it may not last forever. He may never retire on this. It's unlikely that he would, but it could lead to other opportunities. And you never know with tools like this. Squarespace could come along and offer to buy this up from him, or, there's all kinds of options out there. So that's why this is interesting, is because it is, as you may have figured out by now, we like to focus on the unconventional here in Word Slinger land. And this is somewhat unconventional. And it's interesting to think about what can happen. So I love the fact that we currently live in this atmosphere where you can turn practically anything into a business. If you don't believe that, go check out sites like Etsy or even eBay. Or Craigslist. You can go and just kind of look around and you could see people who are maybe not making a full-time living on what they're doing, but bringing in some cash and, supplementing and boosting their revenue and their income. So more power to you. And I love that kind of thing. I love the fact that we live in a culture where that's a possibility. I think the idea, the definition of career, I think that whole thing is changing. I think that we're on the cusp of an evolution here. I believe that. I totally do. I'm an author. I've spent most of my life as a copywriter, most of my professional life. I have always been a writer. I'm in an era where it's easier than ever to make money from writing. Now, not easy to make millions of dollars from writing. That takes dedication, work, planning, strategy. I'm still working towards that goal. But, I've made a pretty good living as a writer most of my career. There's been ups and downs, and the book sales are starting to kind of pick up, so that's a positive. I'm very excited about. So that's the sort of an unconventional career that I approve of, that I like, and that I like to study. With Seth, we get to take a look at a sort of side business. So I think you're going to enjoy this, and I'm hoping it kind of gives you an inspiration to go out and sort of look at what you can do and what you can provide, and see if maybe there's a business model there. Maybe there's something you can produce that no one else can produce, or maybe there's something you can produce and it doesn't matter if 1,000 other people can produce it. You just happen to do it first, or you do it better, or you market it better. So give that a try. I hope you'll do that. So I'm going to move us on into the interview now with Seth Livingston. Really enjoyed this one. I hope you will too. Stick around after the interview, and we'll circle back and talk about lots of cool stuff. Well, something. We'll talk about something. So stick around for something after the interview. Hey everybody, now today I am sitting with, we'll call him a new friend. We just recently connected. And actually, Seth, I actually found you through some forums on the Squarespace site.
That's right.
But I'm talking to Seth Livingston. He is the owner of Seth's Pop-Up Creator, which you can find at sethspopupcreator.com, and you'll be able to find links to that in the show notes. And I am, Seth, the biggest hang-up I've had with Squarespace, as much as I love it, is the fact that it doesn't always have, the tools I need to do what I want to do. And one of those was a pop-up so that I could use that for opt-ins. So I was really kind of glad to come across yours. I think it was a bit of self-promotion, I think, in one of the forums, but that's where I came across you.
Yes, it was. In fact, when I got started, I've actually been working with Squarespace for a very long time, probably at least 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And recently, I decided, probably a couple years ago, I decided that I wanted to do some additional work on the side, maybe get a little more serious about it. So I started posting on the Squarespace forums, since I kind of knew how to work with it, looking for work to do. And I also posted a profile on a website called Upwork.com, which used to be Elance and Odesk, and put a profile up there. And people found me, and I started doing work for Squarespace, and they were all asking me to do the exact same thing. They wanted a pop-up. So it's definitely one of those things that Squarespace doesn't do, and I got so tired of writing pop-ups for everyone. I think I was charging people $100 to $150 for each pop-up.
Wow.
And I thought, I'm tired of doing this, and they shouldn't have to pay that much money for a pop-up, so I built a tool so that they could make their own pop-up.
Yeah, and I've played around with it a little. I haven't added it on my site yet, just because of time, really. Because I plan on doing a little bit of revamp, but it's kind of handy, and I'm actually surprised that Squarespace doesn't have that as one of their little modules you can drop in.
Yeah, Squarespace is they're one of the more interesting cats that are out there. I think pretty early on they decided that they couldn't compete with WordPress, which was probably a good idea.
Yeah.
And because of that, they needed to kind of go a different direction. And they certainly have. You can do things with Squarespace in a lot less time than you could do the same things on WordPress. WordPress can be a little overwhelming. But at the same time, you can do things with WordPress that you just can't do with Squarespace.
Yeah.
And some of those things Squarespace doesn't have any intention of providing. So they've certainly made some decisions for their business, which is interesting to watch. If you're an entrepreneur or you're starting up a small business, it's interesting to see companies make decisions like that.
Yeah.
Where they say, look, we're not going to be able to compete in this space. We have some customers who are asking for this, but we're not going to do it because we won't be able to move a lot of water. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think that overall that's pretty smart. I mean, for what I need, Squarespace has been more than enough. It's a fairly flexible. I mean, it's been fairly flexible. there's things like the pop-up, that I think are kind of a no-brainer that should have been there. But I think overall it's been a great, it's been a
Yeah.
great site. So
Yeah, the other big requests I get for Squarespace are membership. They don't have any support for membership,
yeah,
and that's a big one. And
yeah,
there are a few others that are out there. They don't have any kind of forums or anything. They decided not to bring forums up to their newest platform, which was probably an okay decision since forums are kind of going by the wayside.
yeah.
But like I said, there's still a lot of customers who are looking for that kind of thing.
Are they going by the wayside? Because it seems like I can't get support on anything unless I dig through forums.
That's a good point, and maybe a better statement is that for their target audience, which is the small business person,
Yeah.
like you and me, for us to put up a forum, it's not going to work. It's not
Yeah.
going to make a lot of sense.
Right.
It makes sense for the larger companies, and there are certainly some forums out there that are very successful, but they're very large.
Yeah. So I like the aspect that you saw a need and filled a need. That's cool. That's called being an entrepreneur.
Yep.
So when did this? So you started doing this? How long ago did you start doing it? You said you've been doing
I really kind of got
Squarespace
started on
10
this
years.
2 to 2.5 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I was fortunate. I've had a lot of ideas before. I think we're all like that. We've got a lot of ideas in our head, and this
Yeah.
is really the one that has been successful for me as far as hobby business goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel kind of fortunate because I feel like I found my audience before I found my product.
Yeah.
So I didn't come up with a product and then go out there and say, okay, who am I going to find to buy this product? Instead, I found the audience first.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons that it's been so successful. So if I could repeat that in the future, I would certainly want to do that.
Well, I think you got an interesting model. The way you came about this, though, because you were using Upwork, or I guess were you Elance or Odesk?
I was on both, actually.
Okay, you were on both. I use those for contractors to this day, and the whole Upwork thing has been a little bit of a headache.
Yeah. Big conversion.
But seeing as how you were being approached, so did you put your profile up and said you developed for Squarespace and people just
I
came
did.
to you? So that's
I
pretty
did.
smart. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's smart.
and that was a nice thing to do too, because there's a lot of people on those sites who do just web development or HTML or CSS, and you just get drowned out in the noise. But it's pretty hard to find Squarespace people.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to find people who can do Squarespace work. Twitter right now is probably an easier place to find them than any of the other places. But so yeah, I had a profile on those sites, and few people found me on those sites. A few people found me on the Squarespace forums, and
Yeah.
it just kind of grew from there. These days, I was just looking last week at what's going on with some of the sites out there that allow you to do freelance type work, and there are all kinds of different ones.
Yeah.
If you or your listeners haven't looked recently, you ought to check it out. Have you heard of Fiverr?
Yes. Yeah.
It's been around for a while, but boy, that's really interesting, and it's pretty fun to go browse through that and see who's willing to do what for $5.
Yeah. No kidding. It was this show when I went out looking for like the theme music and a VO for the announcer and everything. I mean, I stumbled onto Fiverr. I think I spent a total of $25 getting all the resources I need for this show, which is a
That's fantastic.
mind-bending experience compared
It
to
is.
when I was in radio. And you might spend $10,000 trying to get
Sure.
the same stuff. So, yeah, Fiverr, man, that's cool. Are you doing
Yeah.
stuff on Fiverr? You offering things on Fiverr?
I set up a profile last week just to play with it.
Yeah.
And but I'm not doing anything serious. I just don't have the time for freelance projects right now.
I hear you. But
But,
what's a $5 project that you're able to offer though?
A $5 project that I could offer. I could probably write 10 to 15 lines of JavaScript for someone for $5.
Oh,
I could
okay.
probably do that.
I see.
So if there's some fancy schmancy something that needed to happen on a web page, or something on a Squarespace page is just stuck up in the upper right corner and they got to have it in the lower left corner, then
Yeah.
I could probably write a function to do that for you.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. All right.
Which you see a lot. A lot of people, I have a lot of customers, a lot of people I encounter in Squarespace, and really not just Squarespace, but any small business website who are spending a lot of time trying to move their menu down a little bit, trying
Yeah.
to make the width of their articles a little bit wider.
Yeah.
And, I try to encourage them to go with what Squarespace gives you and focus on your content.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I will admit I'm one of those people who frequently I'm looking for ways to tweak something, fix it, make it better.
Hmm.
As much as to be frank about it, I love Squarespace. Like I've tried WordPress and other sites or other CMS, and that one just resonates with me. It just fits the way I work. So yeah, I'm cool with it. But I do wish I could tweak some things. So now that I know you exist, I'm gonna probably hit you up every now and then.
Hey, $5, man.
$5. I can live with $5. So I think the thing that struck me, this is what interested me, because that whole notion of you saw a need for this and then you went out and you built something around it. And I assume you built this site on Squarespace, right? Or no?
Yes, the main site, the marketing site, is on Squarespace,
Okay.
and it links to the web application itself, which is up and running on Heroku. And I wrote that with Python and PostgreSQL.
Okay. I just figured it would be kind of ironic if you had this whole Squarespace-oriented site built on WordPress or something like that.
I originally tried to build it on Squarespace. I just tried to put some JavaScript into a couple pages on my site,
Mm-hmm.
and it took me about 25 minutes to figure out that I was going to outgrow that really quick.
Mm-hmm.
But there's quite a bit of customization on my Squarespace site that connects it to the web application behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I have to be careful with that, because when Squarespace makes changes, sometimes it can break that connection.
Yeah, and they're really good about making changes with no advance notice.
They are. Yep. They'll hold their head high and make changes. That's
Yeah.
one of the things. So,
Yeah.
but the nice thing about that is when they make changes to all their things. So, for example, they use first-party templates. They're in charge of all their templates.
Yeah.
And a lot of people complain that you can't get third-party templates, but at the same time, when something new comes out on Squarespace, all of their templates get updated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
one of
cool.
the benefits
Yeah.
of working with them.
Well, it is a kind of closed garden kind of thing, and
It is.
it works for them, and I think it works for everyone else too. Frankly, I mean, anyone who's going to use Squarespace as their primary CMS probably needs that kind of tending. Because as much as I like to get into the guts and tinker around, I don't have time.
Right.
And I would prefer to just drop a module in place. I get frustrated with getting things to line up the way I want. That's the thing that frustrates me most.
Yeah.
And
You'll find a lot of people in the Squarespace forums who are having the same trouble.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah, and that spacer thing, man, what a waste. Okay, so enough. I don't want to get into either a love or rip fest on Squarespace specifically, but I think where I started earlier was I like the idea that you built kind of a small hobby business around this. Do you? And you don't have to give me figures or anything, but I mean, how well does this do for you? You have a day job, right?
I do have a day job, and this is very much a hobby business.
Yeah.
It is not something. I probably make about 10% of my day job salary.
Yeah.
So it's enough to make it fun. It's enough for date nights with my wife. It's enough for maybe a vacation. But it's very much a hobby business, and as far as making pop-ups go, I don't expect it to really explode and grow into something massive. There are a ton of pop-up makers out there. None of them are actually focusing on Squarespace, but so I'm pretty comfortable where it is as a hobby business. And if I'm going to launch a business that's going to be a multi-million-dollar thing, which we're all working on, right?
Yeah.
It'll probably be something different. So.
Okay, but you could. The great thing about stuff like this is that you've got something. At the very least, you've got something can bring a little cash in. So if you start another business, this could be a component of it or a package. Yeah, and I like the
Certainly.
fact, by the way, that you offer this as a one-time fee rather than me having to pay monthly, which I didn't understand.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us are getting pretty wary with being billed monthly.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to go out and do something on the web, there's a good chance you're going to pick up 7 or 8 monthly charges on your account, depending on what you're doing. And I get wary of it. I'll end up, we'll all do this. We'll end up paying for something for 3 to 6 months that we're not even using before we finally catch it on our bank statement and say, I should probably cancel that account.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons that I did the one-time fee. Going back to something that you said, having a hobby business as a way to, maybe bring in a little cash and help out. Probably that is certainly, something that's attractive. But the other big thing for me was creating a successful hobby business is a great way to build your confidence
Yeah.
as far as being an entrepreneur goes.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Because even a hobby business takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
Things that I originally thought were going to take 2 weeks took 2 months. Things that I thought were going to take 2 months are still in the hopper. They're still being worked on. But I have been able to accomplish some things. I have been able to get some things out there and make a little money with it. And that gives me a lot of confidence moving forward, because I can look back on that and say, man, there were a couple months there where I was just pouring hours into this, and I got through it. It seemed like a task list that was way too long. It seemed like much more. It seemed like I had bitten off much more than I could chew, but I got it done. So
yeah, and so yeah, I like that whole notion too, because you use it as a confidence builder, but it's a great proving ground for certain ideas you might have about a business, especially if you do have an eye toward building something bigger later.
Yes.
Something like this would be great to get your feet wet and try out a few things and fail at a few things that don't matter quite as much. So
that's right.
very
That's
cool.
right. And of course, one of the other key components, and what you and I are doing right now, is along the way while you're doing that, hopefully you're building some relationships.
Yeah.
And that's going to help you become a better business person.
Yeah.
And it's going to open up new opportunities, and it's actually really fun.
Yeah.
Really enjoy chatting with my customers and enjoy chatting with you.
How often do you communicate with your customers?
2 to 3 times per day, I'll get a support request, and for most of them, they're the same thing. And I'll have kind of canned replies that I have set up, and in some software called intercom.io, which does my chatting and support. So if someone's using my application, they can hit me up right in the middle of using the app.
Yeah.
And so I'll getting requests, and I'll start seeing the same requests over and over, and then I'll fix that part of the app, and then I won't get those requests again. So it's a pretty low effort application, and it's pretty fun to see how some of the customers are using it.
Yeah. So other than like opt-ins, I mean, is there something else people are using this for?
Oh yeah, lots of different stuff. Opt-ins for email lists.
Yeah.
They're using it for promotions. So if they're having a sale and they want to get someone to head over to their e-commerce page. A lot of announcements. So, for example, a nonprofit organization might have a big event coming up, and they just want to show a pop-up to remind everyone to mark their calendars.
Yeah.
I also have people who use the pop-up to encourage them to give them a call. So they might be doing a service where they really want the site visitor to pick up the phone and give them a call and talk about doing business with them. So a lot of different ways of doing things. And then there's a few pop-ups that are out there that are warnings.
Yeah.
Not many of those though. So pretty interesting mix. Not everyone is making an annoying nuisance of a pop-up. A lot of people are doing good things and getting good results out of it.
Yeah. Well, and I've been in marketing for quite a while, and I really, really hate to admit it, but the fact is that these pop-ups, when a pop-up comes up, it's actually very effective as a marketing tool.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
As much as people hate them.
There is some research out there, and they are very effective, and there are ways that you can do that without being too annoying. And but it does. It really works. And when you're building an email list or trying to get visitors to jump over to a page that you're doing a promotion on, it's worth it. It's financially worth it.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Especially lists. And, I mean, I'm an author, so the list is my life. I mean, I gotta figure out every way possible to get people to sign up on that list. That's one of the reasons I was so interested. Why I started looking into this in the first place, because Squarespace has that little banner thing you can put at the top of the screen. I forget what they call it, but it's
the newsletter block.
The newsletter, yeah, and that's great. That's great. It's pointless, but it's great.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the emails, because there's so many different ways that we can communicate online. through social media and chat applications like Slack, which have gotten very robust.
Yeah.
But in many ways, email is still king. Email is still one of the best ways to engage with your target audience and an interested target audience.
Yeah.
I work for a company called culturemap.com during the day, and we do kind of city guides, where to eat, what to do for Dallas, Austin, and Houston.
Yeah.
And email lists are a big part of what we do too. And the people on our email lists are very interested in what we're offering, and we're very interested in giving them what they're interested in. And so we have a social presence on the different social mediums, but email is king.
My sister-in-law actually did some work, has done quite a bit of work with Culture Map. She's
Fantastic.
Yeah. So that's cool. I'll have to, after the show, I'll give you her name. We'll see if you know her.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's great. And yeah, completely derailed myself on what I was going to ask you next, but we'll make something up. How's that?
That sounds good.
So, as an entrepreneur, I mean, the thing is, a lot of the people listening to my show are authors, and entrepreneurs by nature. I mean, I get some folks who are just purely entrepreneurs. But I love this idea of, first of all, I like the idea that you're supplying tools to make life easier for folks like me. Okay. If I were coming at this as an author trying to, trying to learn from this experience, what are some things you've learned in the process of developing this that might transfer over to other businesses?
Yeah,
I went a long way around to get to that, but I think.
No, I think it's great, and I think we share a lot of things. My mom actually always wanted me to be an author, so that was kind of something I always wanted to do. But being an author and being an entrepreneur to me are very similar things.
Yeah.
I know for being an author, what it takes to put something together, whether it's a periodical or a short story or a full book, whatever the case may be, whatever it is you're authoring, technical writing, it's challenging, and you do it because you have a passion for it, but that doesn't mean it's easy.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for me when I'm writing code. Same thing goes for others who are doing other endeavors when it comes to kind of creating their own business, or in the case of an author and a product, creating their own little thing, creating their own little baby. And I think the key is when you sit down and you're an author and you've got something to write, you've got a list. I would imagine for a lot of authors, that list ends up being really long.
Yeah.
Oh man, here's what I got to do. I'm having trouble with this. This chapter took longer than I thought, or this piece is taking me a lot longer than I thought it would. And you just got to keep plugging through it. You got to go through it one step at a time. You're not going to finish when you thought you were. And I think that's the first thing that really discourages people, is when they realize, man, I am not going to have this done when I thought I was going to have it done.
Right.
And a lot of us will bail when that happens. And if you can fight through that, if you can crash through that and just keep going through that list, going through those things that you need to get through, even if you're moving slower than you thought, then you will eventually get there. And once you get there, your confidence will start building, and you'll realize that, hey, I can do this. And it takes me a lot longer than I think.
Yeah.
But I can do this.
Yeah.
So
that's great. Yeah, and I tell authors, because when I talk with other people who are aspiring to get into that work, a lot of it really is sitting down every day, putting button seat, coming back to the keyboard every day. I imagine it's very similar for coding. I mean, I've done some coding, so it's in essence, you are a writer. I mean, you're creating a work from scratch. So what's your process for making yourself come back to that each day?
That's a good question. What is my process for that?
I only ask good questions here.
That's true. That's true. That's very apparent. As far as having a process goes, I would imagine a lot are like me and have a pretty busy life.
Yeah.
So it's pretty hard to come up with a reliable routine that you can come up with. For me, I have to get a little grumpy about it.
Yeah.
And I have to bark at myself a little bit in the mirror, and I've just got to make myself sit down. When I finish eating dinner, and having a beer and sitting down and watching some baseball sounds really good, I have to say, you know what, I can't do it. I've got to go over there and at least put 2 hours in. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to put in 2 hours. And after that, I can have my beer and see what the baseball game looked like.
Yeah.
So so for me, it's not so much a routine as just getting in a zone where I have discipline. And it comes and goes. I would imagine it does for a lot of people. But just to have the discipline to turn some things down, and like you said, put your butt in the chair and get to work.
Yeah. So what were some of the biggest challenges to, aside from figuring out how to make yourself skip the beer in the baseball game? I mean, what was the biggest challenge you faced in developing this in particular?
I was my biggest challenge.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. So I can't think of anything that came close to the challenge of getting myself to sit down and really push through and finish it. I had some good people that I was able to rely on as far as motivation. Good friend of mine who already has a much more successful side business gave me a lot of advice. As far as some of the other hurdles go, I had to, the first version, of course, wasn't right. The second version was close, and the third version was just right.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to a lot of things. I think it takes us about 3 times to get something right. And we don't always get a chance to do things 3 times, but coming out with it that first time and realizing, wow, this doesn't really do what people need it to do.
Yeah.
And having to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit, that was tough. And that was, felt like a little bit of a setback. But
did that go out? Was that something people could buy at the time?
It was. I think I only had 11 or 12 customers before I said, all right, this isn't working.
Yeah.
And kind of had to go back and rework it and, get it even more serious.
Yeah.
So, but, I really didn't have too many technical hurdles. I kept the costs down. And I guess the other big challenge, for all of us is finding that free time.
Yeah. Yeah. And time, I don't know. I went through a whole period. Like a while back, I went through a bunch of old journals from a few years ago, and I had written an entry in there where I said I had committed. I said I'm going to commit to finding 2 hours a week to write, which is ridiculous now considering how much writing I actually do. 2 hours. That's like just barely warming up now.
You're right.
So it's amazing how that perspective changes. Did you notice any impact on your sort of work? I mean, I don't know what your work ethic was before or what it is now, but did you see any changes after?
It always, when I get busy on the hobby project, my work quality and effort goes up.
Yeah.
And I think, again, a lot of us are like that. When we get busy and we feel like, boy, I've only got 14 or so waking hours today. I need every single one of those hours.
Yeah.
We get real serious about what we're doing. We focus. We tend to put aside things that we know are not critical or not needed. We try to emphasize time with our family and friends, really make it quality time. And so it really it's really not a thing where the more work I do on the hobby project, the less I do during my day job. It's kind of the opposite, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. I mean, and there's that old adage that I guess it's success begets success, or whatever. So you're doing well in one part of your life, you're probably going to do well in another part of your life, or it's going to inspire you and keep you energized.
You bet. You bet.
So what else are you working on? I mean, you got something? Are you developing any other side businesses or adding to this?
Not
one?
yet. I've got one more version of the pop-up creator to go. The pop-up creator is. It's about 75% of what people need. There's another 25% of what people need. I'm going to finish that. It's going to take a few more months. And at that point, I'll probably start thinking about, what are some other hobby businesses that I could look into doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where that's going to take me yet.
What's the 25% we're getting?
The 25% is, every single day there are more and more people using mobile devices.
Yeah.
And pop-ups, depending on how you build them, they don't work well on mobile devices. So you've really got to put some things in place to where people can still accomplish that goal of calling attention to something, regardless of where the visitor lands, but make it friendly to mobile devices. And Squarespace has spent millions of dollars making that work on web pages. And I'm trying to find a way to do that for less than millions of dollars
Yeah.
with pop-ups, and that's one of the big ones.
Well, the great thing about the fact that Squarespace is spending millions of dollars is that sort of ends up trickling down a little because, as they figure some things out, then you guys go out and you figure out how to replicate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why I think it's important to really be paying close attention to the other companies, to the other people who are in your space.
Yeah.
And I would think even for authors that would make good sense to be paying close attention to how others are accomplishing their writing, and how others, particularly who they relate well to and have some good personal relationships with, are accomplishing what they're doing.
So, what are some resources that you pay close attention to as a how do you refer to yourself? You're a coder or a programmer? I hesitate all the time.
I'm probably a programmer. More
Okay.
than anything, I'm a programmer.
Okay.
So the grapevine that I really pay close attention to is Twitter.
Okay. Interesting.
Twitter is pretty popular for programmers and nerds, so it's a good place to plug into that audience. It's also a good place for creative people, though. So I wouldn't be surprised if authors and other creatives out there ought to be plugging into Twitter. It's pretty easy to connect with someone who is somewhere else in the country, somewhere else in the world, but has a lot of the same goals that you do, and connect to them, engage them, get advice from them, find out where their website is, and really build relationships with them. So that's my key point. I've got Twitter up and running all day long. I keep a close eye on it. And I have made some friends over the years in the Squarespace world and in the programming world that I would not have made were it not for this little hobby business.
Wow. So, would you ever work, directly with Squarespace, or is just always going to be kind of a third-party relationship?
Probably a third-party relationship. The technology that they use doesn't match with the technology stack that I use.
Yeah.
And so probably remain a third party in that respect.
Yeah. But until they come along and say, we'll give you a few $1 million for your pop-up.
Yeah. I don't know if they're going to be too interested in a little hobby pop-up.
I don't know. I don't know where they're getting a lot of that. So I know they have a lot of internal development, but I don't know that all of the modules are being developed entirely within Squarespace's walls.
Yeah, maybe they're doing some outsourcing or something. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they took a stab at pop-ups and decided not to do it because of some of the difficulties with mobile devices. Everything they do is mobile friendly.
Yeah.
It's pretty difficult to make pop-ups mobile friendly, so that might have been why they kind of bowed out of that.
Oh, yeah, okay. I hadn't really considered that. There's a lot I haven't considered, frankly, about why Squarespace does or doesn't do half of what they
Yeah. It makes a lot of people scratch their heads, that's for sure.
Yeah. So there's that. I mean, and I forget, did you say there were other projects you had brewing?
There are going to be.
Okay.
I've kind of told a friend of mine that, hey, next year let's put our heads together and see what's on the horizon.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they are yet.
Okay.
I'll have to check in with you next
All
year.
right, tune in. Yeah, all right. So, all right, you have your website is sethpopupcreator.com. Are you going
That's
to
correct.
have like a developer site or something where you're talking about other things you're working on?
Probably not. I would love to have time to do that, but
Yeah.
I have to cut that out, and that's one of the things that gets cut out. And I would love to do that. I'd be curious to see, what you and other authors are doing as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Are you guys using Medium a lot? Are you using Squarespace? What are you doing?
I think most authors end up using WordPress just because it's so ubiquitous. I think it's easy to find people to develop for them if they don't know how to do it themselves. So they go WordPress.
Got it.
But I will say, I mean, there's a piece of software floating around out there called Scrivener, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I have heard of it. I don't know what it is though.
Basically it's for writing. It's a organizational writing tool, and they have promised a mobile version of that thing for years. So if you want to make millions of dollars right away, go develop the mobile version of Scrivener and tell writers. And I'll even push that for you, man. Just let me be a beta tester on the thing.
You bet.
So anyway, all right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up here. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I know we had some near misses a couple of times there. Sorry about
We
that.
did. No, that's fine. That was all me. I've actually had bronchitis for 2 straight weeks,
Oh
so
no.
feeling much better. I would not have been a very fun interview
You had,
last week.
you had the whole sexy radio voice thing going though.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, good. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up. Everybody listening in, you can actually check out Seth's work at sethspopupcreator.com. You'll be able to find links to that in the show notes. If you want to follow him on Twitter, it's at popupcreator. That's an easy one. Also going to be in the show notes. And Seth, thanks so much for taking the time, man. I'll be keeping an eye on. And you're going to have some kind of like, maybe on your the pop-up page, maybe you can have like a, just a newsletter or something, so we can see what else you're working on.
I'll do it.
All right.
I'll do it. I'll make sure it gets out there.
All right.
So, Kevin, thank you so much for having me on. I
Oh,
really
no
enjoyed
problem.
the
No
chance
problem
to
at all.
talk to you, and I love getting a chance to talk to my customers, and this was a great chance.
Perfect. All right, everybody, stick around for the wrap-up at the end of the show, and we'll see you next week. And that was Seth Livingston, everybody. And, just to sort of circle back around, I love the whole entrepreneur mindset because it means so much more than people think it means. You hear the term entrepreneur these days, and you, I don't know, it has a certain connotation to it. Some people don't like that connotation. People think of entrepreneurs as being kind of, I don't know. I have my own like weird hang-ups at times when I think about entrepreneurs. I think about guys, a bunch of guys in suits in a small kind of crappy rental office space, drawing on their windows and walls, trying to map out a kind of napkin plan for some idea they had. That's weird that I would think that way because I've been involved with so many startups and so many entrepreneurial ventures. You'd think I'd know the truth, and I do know the truth. I mean, the truth is, an entrepreneur is somebody who looks around, sees a need, decides to fill that need, and creates a business model around filling that need. And that's what you probably are. I mean, whoever you are listening to this podcast, I'm going to kind of make a prediction about you. I suspect that you are an entrepreneur yourself, that you are actively looking for a way to build a small business, probably looking for a way for that small business to support your entire lifestyle. That may not be the right direction, actually. Start looking for ways you can fill a need and what you can do that's unique. And I think you'll see a lot more progress. As an author, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a business that I have to run, but it's not the only thing I'm doing. I mean, I've got other sideline businesses. I have a business partner, and the two of us are creating things mostly for authors. And I think there's a lot of room for growth in that industry. We have a couple of things on our plates in design, some things that are already available out there. Nick and I are actually building a whole network of cool stuff for authors, like the readycovers.com website, where you can go find pre-made covers or find a designer to custom make a cover for you. We also have author.email, which is or authoremail.com, whichever you prefer, which is an email service that's aimed specifically at authors and only authors. We have we've offered coaching, we've offered we've offered cover design ourselves, we've offered editing, ghostwriting, all sorts of services in the past. Some of that I'm trimming out. Trying to get away from services, direct services, and get into more of a product mindset, because I think that's a better way to go. But that's all entrepreneurial thinking. It's all us looking around. To be honest, here's how we do it. We look around and say, I wish I had a tool to do this. And then decide, well, we can build that tool. And once we build that tool, we think, other people might need this. And so we put it out there. Now, there's a kind of mentality out there that, you need to dive in and do a bunch of research, research your market, make sure that what you're building is viable for your market. And I think that's absolutely true. I think that you need to determine whether there's a market demand for what you're building. If your intention is build something for the market. However, if you're building something for yourself and you're able to offer it to the market, I think you're okay with just diving in. So if you're going to spend money on research and marketing and that sort of thing, then that's great. I mean, it means you're on track to design something for a specific market. You want to determine that the market wants it and that they're willing to pay for it and what they're willing to pay for it. On the other hand, I love the approach of, I need a pop-up creator. I need an email service that isn't overly complicated. I need a place I can go when I just need a quick cover. I think looking at that and saying I need, and then filling your need, and then thinking about it and saying maybe someone else could use this too, it's a great way to create a side business. It may not ever make you a dime, but your investment in it is probably going to be pretty minimal. But think about the benefits to your own success, your own work, your own life. So I think my feeling on this is go off and find the things that you need most, create something around it, and then offer it for sale. Don't put yourself in hock over it. Invest exactly as much as you would invest to have that thing. If there's a tool or resource that you need, invest exactly what you feel comfortable spending, both in time and money, to get that thing. And then it's yours. And then anything you make on it profit-wise above and beyond that is gravy. I mean, it's just extra. And who couldn't love a little bit of extra? So anyway, that's the way that goes. So I hope that made sense, and I hope that that's the kind of thing that you're thinking about in your own career. If you want an unconventional career, there are a lot of routes you can take to do this. I do recommend doing research into your market, but start with filling a need for somebody and then go from there. Even if it's a need for someone you know rather than yourself, see what it would take to fill that need. Because if there's one person who wants it, there's probably going to be another. And there's always a market. So if you have questions, if you want to ask me anything, call me, 281-809-WORD. That's 281-809-9673. You can also visit me online at wordslingerpodcast.com, where you can leave me a voicemail from the page, or you can send me an email from that page. There's lots of ways to contact me, actually. You can catch up on back episodes, hear what other slingers are saying, other entrepreneurs, authors. There's been a heavy author focus lately. I guess that's what's on my mind. Go buy my books. That was a subtle little subliminal message. So anyway, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you for tuning in. Now tune in next week. It's our 50th anniversary. No, it's our 50th episode, not our anniversary. So we're going to celebrate our 50th episode, 50 whole episodes together. And if you haven't listened to all 50, they're all in the archives at wordslingerpodcast.com. Go catch up. There's a lot of great stories in there. You can kind of see the evolution of the show. It's constantly evolving. It's a constantly evolving show, just like the English language, apparently. But go check that out. And please do call me, 281-809-WORD. That's 281-809-9673. Take care of yourselves out there. I will see you next week for 50.
Word Slinger.